Hi, I'm Jodi Barrows with the Square in a Square system. Today we're going to talk about the basic square and the option for half square triangles. Let's see how it works. Okay, to make any triangle unit with the Square in a Square system, you need to start out with what we call the basic square, which is a square in the middle with strips on the side. Then the different ways you trim it up, you're going to get all your different triangle units that we call options. Today we're going to work on option 4, the half square triangles. So you can see here how we will get 4 half square triangles and one here coming out of this basic square. So let's talk a little bit about the basic square first and see how we do this. So have your squares and strips cut. You'll put your strip in the sewing machine and you'll load it up with your squares. We call it loading the strip. So notice how you'll just put your squares on. You need about a finger space in between and you will just sew, continue sewing all the way down. Don't lift your foot, just keep feeding them into the machine. Now when you do that, you can see here how we have these all sewn on and about a finger space in between. So when you get to the end of your strip, however long it is, whether it's a fat quarter of 18 or 22 inches or maybe just a scrap, if you're doing scrap, when you get to the end, leave it in the machine. Then start your next piece and start sewing a little bit. Then you can add more squares if you need more squares, or you can grab your piece, trim it off, and bring it around and lay it down gently and just continue to sew, making sure that the edges of the square are nice and neat with the strip. See, you don't need to open this up. See, don't open it up. See how that's going to make it more sloppy and it's not going to go as fast or be as neat. So just lay it on there nice and gently and continue to sew all the way down until you have as many squares as you can get on your new strip. So that will look like this. So you can see how we have both strips on, and you would just cut those apart, scissors or rotary cutter, just go in here and separate them, and then you will have your piece that looks like this. They'll look like this. And you'll go in and press them, what we call open. See how the seams go out and away. And now you want to put a strip on the other two sides opposite. Remember, this is what we're striving for. So I will start it in the sewing machine and sew a little bit, put my strip on, lining it up nice and neat with the square, and just continue and chain piece these, feed these into the machine. So I would sew that one in, add another and another. When you do that, you can see how we started sewing, put the strip on, keep sewing, put the next strip on, side 3, keep sewing, and just chain piece these together. When those are done, then you will bring it around and you'll want to sew down the strip on the opposite side. So here's what they look like. So you can see how I just repeated it for the opposite side for side 4, and that's how you get all 4 sides on the square. Now notice how we've just used short pieces on side 3 and 4. So think about all your scraps that you have, how easy it'll be to trim those up just to cover the square, slap them down, sew them on, and then we're going to let the system do the work for you. Now when you get ready to press, I like to stack them all up so that this strip is on the top. And I will just lay it down, kind of go over the top, and then just press it open. So once again, just press it open. I let the iron do the work. Notice how I'm using a little iron. That way I can control it better and cover exactly what I need. A big iron has the opportunities to twist your blocks, and I like to use a little one, plus they stay hot all the time. So now we're ready to trim these up. Now if we did, notice how you can do your colors however you want. Scrappy, all 4 sides are different. Keep the same on opposite sides, or maybe do all 4 sides. It just depends on where you want the color in the quilt or the design that you're making. So let's move over here to the cutting board. And I have my square and a square book, and I have my square and a square ruler, and those are what I need. So I'll put my basic square on the table, find the 90 on my ruler. Now there's two ways to trim your blocks, no matter what option or triangle unit you're making. You can put the 90 in there and trim so that it will leave the 1/4 of an inch. So see how I just put the tip of the 90 in there and it left the 1/4 of an inch, so I can go back in and sew that and get that nice perfect point. Or you're going to trim doing what we call the Texas two-step. So the Texas two-step, you put your 90 in there and then you step over on one side of the 90, 1, 2. Now to make my half square triangles, I want to Texas two-step all 4 corners. So let's go all the way around the block. I put my 90 in there and then I just step it or slide it over 2. Once I start doing my cutting, I want to look where I've already cut to see if my block is staying square. And what that means is that I want the fabric underneath and the lines on the ruler on top to look nice and neat or parallel. So looking at my fabric and the line, and then looking at my fabric and the line, does it look neat? Do they look parallel, or do they look crooked? That way your block will stay square. Now I'm going to come back in here and retrim this one because I want half square triangles on all 4 sides. So there's my block. I did what we call the Texas two-step on all 4 corners. Then you will come in here, and I do like to use my grid lines just to kind of look at my piece underneath. I can see if it's looking square and neat. I'm going to cut one way. Try not to move your fabric. If your ruler is new, then use a dryer sheet to kind of run across it to help get some of that static out of the plastic. Okay, so I've Texas two-stepped all 4 corners, and then I've cut through all 4 corners. And look at those 4 beautiful half square triangles that I have. I have no grids to draw. I didn't sew on any side of the line. It didn't get all crazy because of the bias. I don't have to buy any papers, peel any papers, and I have one ruler that will make every triangle unit, and it will make it in any size. And that's why I love the square and a square system. And it helps remove the human element, and it's going to give you more speed and more accuracy. So here are your half square triangles. Notice how you could put them together like this to make a really cool design. If you want to do one up, one down, you can make a nice border like that. Let's look at some quilts that we've got using our half square triangles. Okay, this one is called Scrappy Stars, and it's in the reference book that we're going to look at here in a few minutes. Notice how I have 4 half square triangles, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I did, if you do one of these all in black, then you're going to get all 4 of those. If you do 2 of these all in green, then you're going to get this so that it looks more like a green star. And if you do one of these in brown, you're going to get the 4 that you need for there. So 4 basic squares will give you all of these half square triangles that you need for the block. So notice in the outside row, it's kind of cool when you think about how the color goes out and then just twist it counterclockwise, the color goes in, twist it one more time, the color goes out, and one more time, and the color goes into the corner. Now your center sections, you'll have to lay those out a little bit different, but that's how the outside edge is, and that helps you remember how to put those in there so that you get the color in the right place. Then it helps create the design. So I really love this one, the Scrappy Stars, and a great way to use up your scraps. Now this next one is called Briley Star, and it is a stretch star. So notice how you have your half square triangle units in here, and then obviously through here. Now the block is put together in actually 2 pieces. You're going to have this unit here, which is a plain square, a half square triangle, and what we call a bar or a rectangle. And then you're going to have the 2 plain squares with 2 half square triangle units going in, touching nose to nose. This is called an hourglass block, and I really love the hourglass block. There is so much you can do with it, and the way that you can put color here or here and twist it in your units will make really beautiful blocks. So you can see this hourglass unit there, and then there, and this one with the bar or the rectangle, you see it there or there. So all of your units are either made this way or this way. So it's not like you have to lay out each block and put them in a row. Half square triangles are so notorious for getting twisted in your work, and this way it will help you so that you won't have a color going the wrong direction. You just need to make this one with the rectangle or the bar, and this one that is the hourglass block. When you put them together, the 4 units, then you get this stretch star look. I think we did 12 basic squares. You could do them scrappy or do them in multicolors and make a beautiful little quilt here, the Briley Star. Now this one has half square triangles in it, option 4, and they are in the corner. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I only had to do 1 basic square to get those corners. And it's not hard to get the tiny units using the system. That's one of the other things that I love about the Square and a Square is it doesn't matter whether you're making a little quilt or a big quilt. It just makes it really simple. We'll come back to this quilt in another video because it also has option 1s with a 4 patch, and then it has your flying geese with just a little 2 patch, and then of course a plain square. And those are the units you need to make this one. We call this one Rounding the Square. Now this one is called Broken Star, and Broken Star comes in what we call an individual pattern. It's not a book, but it also comes with the Union Square quilt, which was the one that was behind me at the start of the video. Now when we go and look at this little quilt and break it down, you can see that hourglass block, but we did background color and star color to help create this little design, but it's still the hourglass block. So see how the color just goes in and the noses touch in the block, and then you have a background square and a colored square. Now look how beautiful this would be if you did this one in a scrappy version. I love these hourglass blocks. I use them in so many different designs. Then you just have your rectangles here in your little square, and you're going to set all of those together. So see if you turned all of these and put them on top, they would all be exactly the same. So don't get complicated with your half square triangles, laying them out and trying to do each individual block. Lay 4 of them out just right on top of each other and sew them together that way, and it'll help them from twisting and turning. So let's look at the book. Now obviously if you're going to make any of our quilts, we're going to give you the exact sizes and measurements that you need to make that block or that quilt. But in this reference book, one of the things that I love so much are the charts that start in on page 34. There's lots and lots of pages of charts, and each option has their own chart. So today we're talking about half square triangles, and here on page 34 is the option for half square triangle chart. Now the charts have 3 columns in them. The first column is going to say what size of half square triangle do you want. Then it's going to tell you what size to cut the center square and what size to cut the strips, because our sizing all comes from this center square and what size did you start with. So the next thing you need to remember is look at the very first column, and it says sewn or finished size. Now every piece has 2 sizes. It has a cut or a raw edge, which is bigger. Let's say this one is 2.5, and then when you put it into a quilt like you see here, those are the sewn sizes. Those are smaller. So a 2.5 inch half square triangle unit would sew down to a 2 inch. And if you're looking for a 2 inch, then come in here to your chart. It says what is the sewn or finished size. Find your 2 inches, move across. It's going to tell you what size to cut the center square. That's what you need to know, is what size of square do I cut so that these turn out to be the size I need. So cut center square and then move on across, and it's going to tell you the size for the width of your strip, so that you have enough fabric in here that your points are nice and sharp. Slightly blunted is good, and you'll see that in the pictures in the book. But you always have to have it at least a certain size that is the correct size for the ratio of the square. Now, lots of times people will say, but how long do I make my strip? You tell me to make it 2 1/4 wide, but how long? Well, that depends on the size of your square. See how you want them just to nice and neatly cover that square. And if you'll watch the basic squares in some of the other videos, I may even show you how to fold this and cut these from a strip of fabric. Basically, you would come in here with your strip. When you get ready to do side 3 and 4, see how we have a long strip. Remember on 1 and 2, we use the long strip. So what we want are these little short strips that we're going to sew on the side. So I will leave my piece folded together and actually look at the square, put my strip across there, and just fan fold it in my hand. Then I will cut the folds with my scissors, and you can see how you would have a short strip on there. So if you're using longer pieces and not real scraps, you'll want to cut the shorter strips to sew on the side like I was doing in the beginning of the video. So this is your information on how to use your charts, how to do your trimming, and to think about the colors and where you put them on there to make beautiful half square triangles that are in every quilt that you make, almost every quilt. And they can be vicious little things to make. So I really like using the square and a square system to make my half square triangle units so that I get speed and accuracy. It makes my quilts fast and fun and fabulous. Keep watching the Square and a Square.